Bonjour tout le monde. Merci beaucoup, Eric. It is a great pleasure for me to be here in front of this magnificent structure and great symbol. Yes, relationships can change. In recent weeks, the U.S. has called into question our decades-long relationship of cooperation. While I welcome the temporary suspension of U.S. tariffs and very much welcome the joint plan to address the scourge of fentanyl, recent events have been a wake-up call for Canadians. The world has changed, and we too must change to realize the full promise of our great country. Since I launched my campaign a few weeks ago, I've heard from people across the country that they too want change. Canadians want change with a plan that stands up for Canada and creates an opportunity for all Canadians. Canadians want change with a new, positive leadership that ends division and builds together. Now, I'm not a politician. I am a pragmatist. And so if I see something that's not working, I will change it. And that's why last week I proposed a new climate policy, eliminating the consumer carbon tax, having large polluters pay Canadians to make climate-smart choices, and helping our countries leapfrog their American competitors in global markets. Canada needs more of this type of change. Change that puts money in people's pockets. Change that makes our companies more competitive. Change that builds the strongest economy in the G7. Now we face a very different world to one we've known all our lives. A world in which Americans have become more our neighbors than our good friends. And it can feel bewildering at first, but if we take control, it will be empowering. And here's how we do that. We need to distinguish between what we can't change, what we can influence, and what we can and must change to build an even better Canada. We need to understand what we can influence. Look, the world is being fundamentally transformed. The old rules-based order is finished, but a new one, a new system, has not yet emerged. And Canada should now work with like-minded nations to create a trading system that is consistent with our values and that builds our prosperity. Whether we can influence President Trump is debatable, but I think we can, if we listen to what Americans want and respond in ways that are best for Canada. However, we need to be crystal clear about our bottom lines. This proud country will never be part of the United States in any shape or form. We can and must change our government to become more effective. Canadians deserve a government that works for them, a government that's focused on outcomes, not spending, a government that spends less and invests more. In the coming weeks, I'll propose a new approach to federal budgeting that will save precious taxpayer dollars while catalyzing the enormous investments that Canada needs to fully realize its promise. We can and must change how much of your hard-earned money you get to keep. Canada needs a middle-class tax cut, and my government will give them one. Young Canadians need a boost to their incomes so they can catch up after being knocked sideways by the pandemic and the housing crisis. Here, too, my government will deliver. And all Canadians deserve more competition in our economy so that they can get the best value for their hard-earned dollar. We can and must change how we build. This is a pivotal time for our economy, a time to build, And my government would catalyze enormous private investment to build millions of new homes for younger Canadians, to make the AI revolution work for all Canadians, and to build a clean energy superpower that will power, literally, our prosperity. But too often, we've had permitting delays, regulation, and red tape that has stopped or slowed economically critical projects, including ports, mines, and energy infrastructure. We must remove these barriers to spur progress and build for Canadians. I want to be crystal clear about this. My government will use all its powers to protect Canadians and to build in the national interest. The Government of Canada has extraordinary powers at its disposal today to respond to a national crisis. And Donald Trump's aggression against Canadian livelihoods and workers constitutes just such a crisis. And since it's a time to build, we can change how builders are rewarded in this country. That's why I will reverse the government's capital gains tax.
Breaking news! The government is backing away from its capital gains tax hike. Folks, the government says they're now going to delay the capital gains tax hike. They're not going to be taking more money from Canadians this year through their undemocratic, illegal, and economically illiterate capital gains tax hike. And folks, the reason the government is backing away from this awful capital gains tax hike is because of you. Because you took action, because you pressured the government, because taxpayers launched a legal challenge against the CRA, taking the CRA to court, telling the CRA do not enforce this illegal and undemocratic capital gains tax hike.
Increase, not least in recognition of the vital role that builders play in shaping our country's future and ensuring we drive investment, innovation, and growth. I'll have more to say about this in the weeks ahead, but for now, I just want to underscore that I couldn't be more serious. I will do whatever it takes to strengthen our economy and to protect Canadians. We can and must change so that we have one Canadian economy instead of 13. That means we need to harmonize the tangle of rules and regulations at all levels of governments that have meant that Canada, at least the Canadian economy, is less than the sum of its parts. We must break down barriers between provinces so that all Canadians have full access to our resources. Above all, in a divided world, we must rely more on each other because we are always stronger together. We can and must change our major trading partners. Canada and the United States have the most important commercial relationship in the world, and long may it remain so. But now that U.S. priorities are shifting, we need to change our priorities in ways that work best for Canada. We know we shouldn't put all our eggs in one basket. And so, while we should remain closely integrated with the United States in the auto sector, in energy and security, in the new areas that will drive jobs and competitiveness in this century, we must diversify our trading relationships. We should become the essential trading partners of countries that share our values, including the UK, the EU, and leaders in Asia. And we can do so through our leadership in clean energy, in critical minerals, and in the intelligence infrastructure of the AI revolution. We must leverage these strengths for the benefit of Canada and all Canadians. To do so, we have to create supply chain certainty by protecting economically critical infrastructure. And that starts with building and expanding our transportation corridors that connect Canada to global markets from coast to coast to coast. That includes our railways, ports, roads, and bridges, trucking routes, and energy corridors. It will require collaboration and partners with our workers and builders. We want employers to engage early, address issues openly and transparently, and negotiate agreements quickly, ensuring workers and their families are spared unnecessary economic upheaval. But we have to stop holding back our own progress and instead work together to keep Canada moving forward. And finally, we can and must change to make Canada and Canadians more secure. Now, the one thing I've learned over the many years of managing crises is that plan beats no plan. Plans create focus, discipline, and the energy that major changes a crisis demands. And make no mistake, we are in a crisis. We can do little to change the external forces that are causing it, but we can act as Canadians. There's a fever gripping America. And while it rages, Canadians will remain resolute and true to our values. While America engages in a war on woke, Canadians will continue to value inclusiveness. While America shuns the vulnerable, we will continue to show solidarity with one another. While America attempts to turn back the clock, Canadians will build sustainability for future generations. Before America's fever passes, we must seize this moment for Canada.
No.
This is the time to change. This is our time to build. This is the time for Canada. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, everyone.